Nathalia Jackson, reporting from Kids First. Today, I have the honor to catch up with director-producer Alex Horwitz and director of photography Jonathan Furmanki, who helped form the raw and stripped-back Bon Jovi 15th studio album titled Bon Jovi on a Night Like This. This is the first major visual album of the year, a concert recorded during COVID-19. Bon Jovi is an American rock band formed in 1983 in Sayreville, New Jersey. It consists of singer Jon Bon Jovi, keyboardist David Bryan, drummer Tico Torres, and guitarist Phil X, and bassist Hugh McDonald. Welcome to you both. Let's begin. First and foremost, Jonathan, can you share with us in depth about your duties as a director of photographer?
Sure. I mean, I think the simple answer to that question is I'm basically responsible for what everything looks like on camera. And that can be everything from picking out the camera that we shoot with to trying to define the visual language that we're going to use to tell the story. And on a lot of projects, like a movie or a TV show, you know, I do that in conjunction with 100 other people, and they all have different job responsibilities too. And we all work together to create like a whole experience for the people who are watching the movie or the television show. But on a documentary like the one that Alex and I worked on, it was just Alex and I and the sound person in the room with the band and their crew. So at that point, we're working a lot more improvisationally, and we're kind of discovering ways to tell the story visually in real time. So that means I'm walking around with the camera and I'm choosing what kind of frames we want to use and what we want it to look like, but I'm also thinking about the story and what's going to happen next and where are we going to go and all of those things. So it's a lot of responsibilities, but essentially I'm in charge of what it looks like.
You know, I have to admit, I used to get confused a lot about the difference between a director of photography and a cinematographer. And I know sometimes in practical word usage, cinematographer is more modern sounding, and cinematographer may also refer to an individual with just one camera, while a director of photography may have multi-cameras. And I've learned that by interviewing some other director of photography and producers and directors that spoke to me about that, which is really, really cool. Along with that, Alex, as a director and producer, your job is to prioritize and make sure the film is the best you can produce. To what extent did working on this film fit with your expectations, or did it subvert them in any way?
Well, it's interesting to do a concert during a pandemic. That's the first and foremost thing. And that informed how we designed it with the band and how we planned for it and the finished product that you see. In that sense, I didn't really have any expectations because we haven't really watched things like that. We're not used to looking at things as audience members the way we are in these past 9 months or so. Everybody's experiencing things in a new way. So a concert without an audience isn't unprecedented. And we're used to seeing things like, you know, people doing little videos of them performing in a recording studio. Taylor Swift just did a concert like that. But Jon Bon Jovi wanted it to be a bigger show because it's a bigger band. They're a big, loud rock and roll sound. So I was excited for that. I knew what to expect on that front. But we didn't really know how it was going to play without an audience there. So I knew that Jonathan and I would have to come up with a few tricks to give you new things, different things to look at, and shoot it in a slightly different way so that our eyes would take it in as a big show without any of the awkwardness of there not being an audience in the room. Because Bon Jovi is very used to playing in front of very big crowds at arenas and stadiums. So it was a little bit of new territory for us and for the band.
Well, I'm sure as a director and producer, as well as the director of photography, it was definitely a learning experience because, like you said, you had to film it in a different perspective because it was different overall and there was no audience. And Jon Bon Jovi is so used to having those big crowds, so I'm sure it was pretty hard. To continue, Jonathan, the first major visual album of the year truly elevated the band's album beyond that of a usual film concert. I'm beyond a doubt it was a challenge to create that in-the-moment feel. Tell me how you were able to capture that essence and how you had to turn on your alternative thinking when it fit this circumstance.
Well, it as Alex was saying, we were kind of like learning as we went a little bit. It was hard to know what to expect because I had never shot in a COVID environment like this either, and I didn't know. I'd done a lot of stuff with music and things like that, but now it's a excuse me, it's a whole new experience. So when we were doing the documentary portions of it, we really just kind of like set parameters in terms of like where we can be and how close we want to get to people. And after that, we kind of went into our instinctual modes. Alex and I have worked on a ton of documentary projects in the past, and so we're comfortable with that environment. But then for the concert, it was a whole nother thing. And I think what ended up happening ultimately is Alex had the insight that, typically when you do things like this, even if there's not an audience there, you film it as if there is an audience there so that the people watching at home can have that kind of, it feels like you're actually at the arena with the band, it's the same kind of visual presentation. But Alex had the insight that we're not in that world anymore. And given how everybody has to think about how far away they are from each other, that instead of having the whole band face in one direction, what if they faced each other and kind of did this thing in the round, as it were? And that ended up transporting this whole thing into a whole new experience, I think, and made it into a unique presentation of this concert that I don't think we would have had otherwise.
Well, I definitely have to say, I watched this film, and I'm not usually the one to like rock and roll or band or really loud music. I'm very soulful, calm person. But I seem to really enjoy all the music and the songs, and it was really fun. And some point that I brought up to myself was, you would think I wouldn't want to keep being engaged because I'm not there. I don't feel like I'm there. But the film really made me feel like I was there because you connect with you. And even the little parts where they were getting COVID tests in the beginning, you can relate to that part. So it was cool to see those parts of Bon Jovi and the rest of the cast. To further Alex, this film included intimate documentary-style, black and white interstitial moments, link Bon Jovi's thoughts and experiences of the year to the music. And it really emphasized the highs and the lows and the small moments of joy and the utter despair in the beginning of the film. Why did you decide to include Bon Jovi's personal perspective on the film and the concert?
Well, first of all, thank you for that very nice review you gave us a moment ago. Your being interested and feeling like you were there is a very good review that I'll happily take. But I think that feeds into your question, which is Jon Bon Jovi is very engaging. That's the bottom line. Jon likes talking to people, and he's Jonathan and I have been around high-profile musicians and actors, and some of them really command a room, and it's hard to talk to them. Jon really commands a room, but he really likes talking to people. And this album, 2020, which he wrote most of before the pandemic, is very much about what people are going through today, right now in the world. He's very connected to it. He's very in touch with that. You saw in the film, he's talking right to a camera because there's no audience there. And it's as though he is talking to all of us. You mentioned the COVID tests. I knew that if we featured those moments, a big rock band getting swabs stuck up their nose, it does something it reduces the distance between our experience and the band's. It makes us go, oh yeah, they live in the same world we do, and they're going through this very tough time just like we are. So that moment and all those little documentary moments in between where Jon could talk and reflect about what's going on, you see the band laughing and just interacting with each other. Those just make us feel like we're hanging out with a bunch of guys who play music, which ultimately is what it is.
I agree. I think those important moments where they're getting the COVID tests and just seeing them and not knowing them as a rock band or big name musicians, you get to see them as people who are experiencing just what we are. And moving forward, Jonathan, what did you learn working with director and producer Alex Horwitz?
Well, I think I learned that Alex really likes to eat oatmeal for breakfast because he had oatmeal for breakfast every morning while we were in Nashville. But on top of that, one of the things I really appreciated working with Alex is that Alex has a background in editing. And a lot of times you're in these situations where you're shooting real people in the real world. You don't know where it's going to go. And you can kind of get lost in things that don't matter, or you can miss things that do matter. And it was great to know that Alex was there, who's kind of always keeping his eye on the prize, as it were, and knowing exactly what was going to happen, where we needed to be, where we didn't need to be. So it was just nice to be in that environment with him and learn how much he has, you know, kind of like all worked out in his head ahead of time, or the ability to improvise and change depending on how things are going.
Well, just like Jonathan said, he kind of shared a little bit about your background, Alex, and that kind of leads me to my next question. How were you able to build on your skill while working on this project?
Oh, I just hired Jonathan Furmanki, and he makes me look good. That's the, you know, your first question, Jonathan, what's the job of a director of photography? It's really to make me look good. And that's just because I picked him and he makes everything look good. Now I've made a half joke, but I forget the question. But what was the question?
Well, the question was, how were you able to build on your skill while working on
Build
this
on my
project?
skill. Okay, thank you. That's right. I deflected saying, like, I don't have any skills. I just hired Jonathan because he's got the skills. I'm glad Jonathan mentioned my having been an editor. I think that did probably help. I think I'm always thinking about the edit while I'm on set, going, do I need this? Do I not need this? I don't want to be here. I want to be there. Whether that's where I put a camera or knowing that I don't need to roll right now. I need to move on I need us to get to the next thing that's happening that day. I know that being an editor also helped during the concert, because during the concert, you know, I'm going to let Bon Jovi go. They've got a show to do. And every now and then, because there was no audience, they could stop and do something again if they wanted to, but I didn't want to ever have to ask them to stop for us. So I was looking at a big wall of monitors, not very dissimilar from this Zoom screen that people are seeing, except it was a lot more rectangles. And, you know, we had 6 cameras going at the same time, and a bunch of different monitors were showing me different things. But those main 6 in the middle, I was looking at, and I had to look at all 6 at the same time and know probably what I was going to be using in the edit, which camera angle, and know when I was going to cut. And if one angle wasn't where I wanted it to be, I had to talk to those camera operators on a headset. Mm-hmm. And being an editor helps with a moment like that, because I'm very used to, as an editor, used to looking at a bunch of screens like this and going, not that angle, that angle, not that angle, that angle. So, but it was really exciting to hone that in the moment on a shoot, because this was my first big multicam rock concert that I directed, although I had edited a lot of them. So it was nice to use those skills in the moment. Meanwhile, Jonathan was over in the chair next to me, and he was making sure that the lights were all working and everything was looking good. So we were a good tag team.
That's wonderful to hear. It seems like you had a lot of on-foot memories, and it's cool to hear that Alex likes oatmeal just as I do. Well, thank you both, Jonathan and Alex, for speaking with me. And in addition, thank you, Bon Jovi, for such a gratifying concert. Due to making up for its canceled 2020 concert tour with On a Night Like This, a performance filmed under COVID-19 protocols in Nashville couldn't have been better. This is Nathalia Jackson from Kids First. I just spoke to director and producer Alex Horwitz and director of photography Jonathan Furmanki, who worked on the Bon Jovi On a Night Like This, its first major visual album of the year, a concert recorded during COVID-19, previewing now on Sirius XM and Bon Jovi's other media channels. Be sure to like and subscribe for more. Bye!
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.